Declaration of Human Rights a letter to Santa Claus, saying neither nature, experience, nor probability informs these lists of entitlements. This represents a negative view of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. On the contrary, we have a defensive view outlined in this statement by Boutros Ghali, urging the United Nations delegates to underline the universality of these famous declarations, which have been questioned by many developing countries that regard them as dispensable luxury in the Freeport News dated 14th June 1993. President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Mr. Secretary General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Somali's team is here today because we are fully convinced that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is absolutely and unquestionably universally relevant because they enunciate the indispensable virtues and value of freedom in our world. The reality is that above all else, our world must embrace and enhance freedom, equality, and justice upheld in these rights. To validate our claim, we shall be inviting you, our worthy audience, to examine the effects of the Declaration globally and specifically in the war-torn African country of Somalia. According to Longman's Dictionary of Contemporary English, a declaration is a statement giving official information. This is what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is. The world's most inclusive official statement reminding people everywhere of the guidelines we need to exist in the most amicable environment possible. Universal, according to the same dictionary, means widespread or general, as these terms relate truly to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was formulated by a large majority of countries and can be applied to most countries and cultures without difficulty. Using this limited definition of universal, our team supports the moot that these documents are universally relevant. These are children's rights to education, the rights of politicians and political prisoners, the rights of the poor and the helpless, the rights of prisoners, and even the rights of criminals are protected, securing them from tortures, executions, jailers, and murderers. The reign of terror which existed in earlier days in many countries has ended. The Tutsis in Africa and Barzani women in Iraq are two of thousands of peoples who have been rescued. Let us now reflect on achievements of these declarations as our third point in reaffirming our claim, relevance, and universality. Prisoners of conscience who face the death penalty in Kenya have been released. Prisoners held in solitary confinement in Luxembourg have been delivered in answers of the call to justice. Furthermore, an analysis of the situation in Somalia will enlighten you further, my worthy audience, on the claim of universality and relevance. This is a country torn by tribalism, terrorism, and diplomatic maneuvering. With a population of 7 to 9 million, life expectancy of 46.6 years, a literacy rate of 24%, an external debt of 2.6 million United States dollars, with 350,000 displaced persons, 41.9% of children aged 5 to 14 currently working, and refugees numbering 451,000. In conclusion, these declarations uphold non-discrimination, economic rights, equal rights, general welfare, the right to work, political freedom, favorable working conditions, fair wages, and many more. They are relevant for us in the past, it is relevant for us in the present, and will remain relevant for peoples everywhere. Equal rights and justice. Let's heed the call of Bob Marley, the reggae superstar. Thank you.
Tarde. Soy Ruben Ramirez Lescano y soy el representante de Paraguay. Good evening. I am Ruben Ramirez Lescano, Foreign Minister of Paraguay. I could remember like it was yesterday. The year was 1930, and we lived in a world where the color of skin determined the class of man. However, in 1948, a document descended from heaven like a dove, which was to vindicate the oppressed and create a world where freedom and peace would reign supreme. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, also known as the UDHR, which, as blunt and as callous as this may sound, 60 years later, for much of humankind, symbolizes a mendacious daydream. Further, in accordance with Booth, as published in the Journal of Finance, February 2001, it is evident that industrialized countries seize the opportunity to take advantage of the meager development of third world countries in the outsourcing of jobs and product manufacturing. Developed countries maximize their profits while paying minimal fees to countries that are impoverished. Therefore, is the UDHR relevant? Yes, but only if countries can afford to make it so. Certainly, it is not universally relevant in the face of economic dissimilarity. Subsequently, Article 25 of the UDHR cannot be expected to be unanimously upheld due to economic poverty, which is now evident according to CIA World Factbook in 2007. 80% to 86% of the populations of Zambia and Haiti are living below the poverty line. In my own country, Paraguay, 36% of the population is living below the poverty line. Undoubtedly, the economic differences between industrialized countries and developing countries is a prime factor that proves the UDHR cannot possibly be universally relevant. 95% of Paraguayans are mestizos, and this fact would make the UDHR relevant to us culturally. However, we must now look at the universal perspective. How can this UDHR assume relevance in a culturally diverse world? Are we, in our arrogance and subversive inclinations, suggesting that we have a universal culture? Article 16 of the UDHR pronounces the right for men and women of full age to marry without limitation due to race, nationality, or religion. According to UNICEF, the fact that young girls are forced into marriage is a direct violation of Article 16, but in Chad and Bangladesh, it is considered traditional and a part of their culture. This document seeks to nullify cultural diversity. How then can it be universally relevant? Moreover, many Middle Eastern countries are bound by their religion and culture to deny many dictums of the UDHR. The Islamic laws and regulations, or Sharia, led to institutions such as the European Court for Human Rights to claim in 2003 and 2004 that the Sharia is incompatible with fundamental principles of democracy. Iran also made a claim that the UDHR was a secular understanding of the Judeo-Christian tradition, which could not be followed by Muslims without betraying their own Islamic laws. Moreover, the Sharia limited freedom of speech as it prohibited forms of criticism, which contradicts Article 19, which states, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. Furthermore, the Muslim Quran states that the penalty for theft is amputation of hands and feet, depending on the number of times the offense was committed. This again rivals the UDHR, Article 5. Although the practices of the Islamic religion may contradict the UDHR, it cannot be relevant to Middle Eastern religions and cultures, as according to Article 18, which states, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. And also Article 27, which states, everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community. Therefore, the UDHR, considering many foreign religions and cultures, cannot be universally relevant. So I ask you, with a deprived economy, a contradictory culture and religion, will you stand to say that the UDHR is universally relevant? By saying that is, you only cast yourself onto a bed of tangled contradictions and paradoxes. So now the answer is as blunt as the truth. The UDHR is not universally relevant. Thank you.
Excelencias, señoras y señores, muy buenas tardes. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen,